Hey, everybody. Okay, so we're gonna add my good friend Ashlee Goodman, CEO of the Pink Mechanic. You guys are gonna enjoy this one. She's really awesome. Okay, I'm trying to make sure the light. It's kind of hard when you have glasses, but we're gonna do what we can. How you guys doing tonight? I'm gonna talk about motherhood and entrepreneurship and mental health because I'm not a mother, but I see how hard it is for you guys. So she's entered the building. So we're going to talk to her more about her journey with entrepreneurship and motherhood and mental health and all that good stuff. Okay. There we go. Should work. Okay.
All right. Hey,
Hey,
Boo.
hey.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I can't complain. Trying to get some stuff together.
All right. Okay,
Okay.
I'm going to turn my camera. Okay, there we go. All right, cool. All right, how you doing?
I'm good.
Good.
Chilling.
Good. All right. Well, everybody, this is my good friend Ashlee Goodman.
Hello.
She's going to tell us more about her amazing self and what she does. So, whenever you're ready.
Okay. Well, my name is Ashlee Goodman. As she stated, I go by the Pink Mechanic online, and I teach automotive tips and tricks. I've been a mechanic for about 13 years, and I'm also a mental health advocate, which is kind of why I'm here. And I'm also just glad to see Tamika. It's been so long. She's actually was a client of mine, and it evolved into a friendship, and now we're just doing the dang thing. So
Yes, 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 yes. Well, thank you so much for being here. I see that you got a lot going on with family, your
yeah,
business, everything. You're making amazing content and just doing your thing. So I'm really proud to see everything that you're doing. But yes, it has been a long time, so I'm glad to see you. Yes,
I appreciate that.
yes, indeed. So do you have anything to drink tonight? You got anything special to drink?
No, I didn't even think. I mean, this is a. I've got a pineapple orange seltzer water.
Well, that is just fine. I got some warm tea, and that's how we rocking tonight. I got some tea and
No.
some water, so that's cool. So you got anything to create with? I have some paint tonight.
I was trying to get the angle so you guys could kind of see like my little situation.
Ooh,
I was actually
ooh.
working on. I couldn't find my canvases because we're moving still. So
Okay.
I was trying to like let you guys see what I'm working on. This is actually what I started this morning. It's a
Ooh,
dispenser, and
cool.
it was black, and I didn't like that. So Alante sanded it, and he did the first coat. But you know, like how those bronze like pieces in like bathrooms and stuff like that, how it kind of has like a gold accent on the edges, kind of like.
Yeah.
I was trying to like recreate that, like a faux, like kind of edge
Well, that's
situation,
really good.
but I don't know how it's gonna go. So it's an experiment. I'm grabbing
Cool.
purple and yellow so I can make my own kind of brown
Okay.
and black. I don't know. We're gonna figure it out though.
Nice. All right. Well, we're here for it for sure.
Hey.
Indeed. Okay. Well, tonight we're going to talk about balancing mental health and motherhood and entrepreneurship as if those things weren't already enough on their own.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about those things.
Okay.
What are 3 words you would use to describe what it's like to be a mother, especially during these times right now.
If I had 3 words to choose, I would literally say the perfect storm.
Mm, okay. All right. Well, you got to expand on that. I like that. So the perfect storm, like expand on that.
Um, it's basically like, I believe it just boils down to just like community.
Mhm.
When you think about how children are, if you ask your parents, like, well, you didn't understand a lot of things, and like you remember, like you would grow up, and they were like, you wait till you have your own kids and you understand.
Yeah.
It's literally kind of like that. Like the more, I have a 4-year-old and a 6-month-old, so the
Mhm.
more the more I become a parent, the more it's just like, oh my gosh, like I love these tiny people that I've created. However,
Mhm.
when I don't have like, any type of, support to help me,
Right.
like get that mental break, it becomes like very overwhelming. And so it's
Okay.
like, but it's like, society's like, oh, well, you had them, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, y'all literally think
Right.
like it takes a village, but there's no,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. I see, I see what you're saying. I don't understand because again, I'm not a mother, but I definitely see what you're saying. I live next door to one of my good friends and sister now. So her son is like my nephew. So
Mm-hmm.
it definitely takes, like you said, a village. She says that all the time. And we see now as well. Like, he just comes, knocks on the door whenever, but she needs that time. So it's good. You definitely have to have that support.
Yeah, it's
So
very, very important. Like, it's
yeah.
of course like, we all have children from different types of circumstances in life, like, stances, but
Mhm.
every person needs a break. Like, could you imagine being in charge of like this new person for
Right.
like 24/7 without
Mhm.
like no type of like relief?
Yeah. Wow. See, that's what I'm saying. Like, I get so overwhelmed, and it's just me, like, just trying to
Yeah. And
manage.
it's not to compare like struggle, like don't get me wrong, like some people are like, well, like, it's just everyone has their own type of, life to live, and that's perfectly fine. But
Yeah.
the older that I get and the more communication that I learn how to develop to like speak
Mhm.
to others,
Yeah.
the more I realize that like people just lack empathy straight up. Like they just
Yeah.
lack empathy.
You're right.
So when people don't understand, they're just like, oh, well, it can't be that bad. And I'm just like, you don't have to go through something to understand what somebody's talking about. But
Mhm.
most people, they don't have that, mental capacity.
Yeah. And it definitely takes conversations like this and just period, just sit down and talk to someone if you don't understand. People, you're right. People are just so quick to judge others and be like, "Oh, well, if I was a mother, I'd be doing this or
Mm-hmm.
whatever." Like, you have no idea what that's like. But
Yeah.
maybe sit down and talk to one. So, yeah. So with that being said, like, what do you enjoy most about being a mother?
Getting to watch my children grow. Like,
Mhm.
they're just like so smart. And I do a lot of like, not like child psychology, but me and my husband, we practice mindful parenting. It
Okay.
goes by several different names, but essentially we talk to our child.
Hmm.
I know a lot of people are like, so you don't spank your kids, and I'm just like, you have to make your life make sense to you.
Yeah.
And like, my son, he sucks up energy and he'll give it right back to you. So even if like we're
Mm-hmm.
admonishing him or just like,
Hmm.
having a stern conversation, like
Hmm.
that's enough to set him off. And like punishment doesn't always like need to be like, putting hands on, but
Right.
we do our best to just let him do his thing, like the Montessori approach, you know, like he's got his own little like tiny room, tiny space, you know, like
Yeah.
he's free to express himself in his own room, but when he leaves the door, put some respect on my house, like, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, like just watching him and how he's processing, you know, my 6-month-old, he's, you know, he's still small, but I I've been reading that like psychologists are now understanding that like, you know, school has taught us to think that like, you know, we're like kids are these empty piggy banks and you just like throw it in, like, you know, throw this information into them and then, you know, like they'll figure out the rest, or, you know, like, you know, they need more information, which it's like, yeah, but that's with anything you learn really. Like,
Right.
you know, it's like, but they're learning that kids are not like that. And I'm like, yeah, like kids are actually really smart. Like my
Yeah.
son like blows me away. And for me, it's really interesting because I am the youngest out of my family. So I'm the youngest out of 6, and I was one of the youngest of like my cousins, and you know, so I didn't grow up around babies or kids. So these milestones to me are like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. It is amazing to go and see these things. Like I was a preschool teacher for many years, and it's like wow, like these are actual little people, and it's
Yeah.
terrible that people are just starting to realize like, hey, you know, they're people that have personalities,
Yeah.
figure out what they want to do. So it's definitely a lot more enjoyable when you teach them in that way to just love who they are and what they want to do. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
That's wonderful. So has being an entrepreneur helped you to develop a more enjoyable lifestyle for you and your family?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Before COVID, it was really difficult because my son wasn't diagnosed with asthma and allergies, and like nobody knew like what this was at the time. But
Right.
what made it like very difficult for us was that, like, you know, the jobs that we had at the time, like his daycare provider like actually died from COVID, like one of them.
Oh,
And so, like, you know, it was a very like rough transition for us into like full-time entrepreneurship.
yeah.
But like we didn't really have a choice because,
Hmm.
you know, if my son, like if they call me and my son needs to be picked up, I'm
Yeah.
leaving. Like that's not negotiable. Like it's
Right.
not like, oh, I'll
Right.
find somebody else. Like, no, like I'm leaving. You like it's not my fault you're understaffed. Like nobody told you to hire 2 people to run the whole store. You know, like
That is your problem.
to a lot to another part-time associate or a key holder or whatever, assistant manager or something like
Hmm.
that, you know.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
it was a rough transition, but it's actually given me the freedom that I wanted. You know, we travel for a
Mhm.
living. I get to meet some really cool people. I met you.
Mhm.
You know, like I don't believe that people are static. I believe like people are dynamic by nature, and there
Mhm.
are so many people who just have so many hidden talents about themselves, and I encourage them to like, you know, dig into that. Like don't I tell people like don't talk to me because I'm gonna get you to start a business. Like get you an
Yeah.
LLC. Like
Yeah.
it's, you know, I have the flexibility to travel, you know, some days like if we're slow, you know, me and my husband will like ride our bikes around or something.
Yes.
But you know, like it definitely has its cons, but for the lifestyle that
Mhm.
I live, it fits.
Right. Yeah. So it sounds like it's totally worth it. That's really good.
Yeah, I think so.
Really good. Yeah. Yes, indeed. So, what tools do you use daily to stay organized and actually get things done? Like, as long as you know me, like, and she's right. She will, if she talks to you, she will push you like, hey, you know, when we gonna start that business? When we gonna do that? So she will definitely be an accountability partner, and it's great. But yeah, so how do you make sure you get everything done? Because I have like a million ideas all day, every day. So how do you make sure you get all those things organized?
I have not mastered that yet, if I'm being honest. I have, you know, I have ADHD. I don't hide my, you know, my mental ailments, but I use my phone. Like
Mm-hmm.
what I've done is I was so focused on like my depression and anxiety that
Mm-hmm.
this year became really difficult for me because for the first time in my life, like now that I've like, not like mastered anxiety and depression, I've lived with it for so long, I like learned about them. So I'm learning about ADHD now, and it is changing my life. Like, I don't think I
Good.
can't remember things anymore. I'm actually remembering stuff. I'm slowing down. I only practice slow living now. That's a part of like being an entrepreneur. Like, you're always going to be working. Don't get me wrong. Like, if you don't want that type of, situation, don't do it. But that's
Right.
only
Yeah.
until you get the right type of foundation and systems into place.
Yeah.
But I use my phone way more now. Like I used to kind of like zone out because I was, I was depressed. But now I
Yeah.
use it because like it's a powerful tool. Like my husband and I, like we have to kind of have like these flagship phones, right? Because we're
Mm-hmm.
mechanics. And
Right.
so we have to have very pristine photos. We're in the, high liability business.
Yeah.
So um, I was just like, yeah, as long as it's got a great camera. Normally, when a new phone comes out, we trade them in and get a new one so we can, have the most accurate, type of stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
I've been like looking up a lot of people on YouTube or forums who have
Mm-hmm.
ADHD, and like I legit had like a panic attack because like I was like, oh my gosh, there's like 8 billion people in the world. And I thought,
Mm-hmm.
because people don't talk about it, I was by myself, and there are so many people with so
Mm-hmm.
many different channels. Like, for instance, like one of them that I watch is like How to ADHD or something like that. And
Okay.
like they literally like go over so much of like how to organize your phone, like how to
Mm-hmm.
like, not distract yourself, how to, stay on track.
Okay.
I try to speak slower so I can stay on
Mm-hmm.
track because
Yeah.
I learned that having ADHD is a manifestation of no decompression. So if you're
Mm-hmm.
working all the time and I have kids, and you don't have time,
Mm-hmm.
like this is decompression for me, like of course like I'm technically working, but I love painting and I'm getting back into
Right.
it. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like I have to slow down so I can understand what I'm saying. And so also
Mm-hmm.
I can listen. So to answer your question, because I went off on a rant, I
Oh,
I use my phone and I only
okay.
stick to 3 things a day. Sometimes I make those 3 things, sometimes I don't, but
Mm-hmm.
I go by as long as I've tried my hardest. Like nobody can take that away from me. And
Right.
I do a lot, like every day. Like that's what I constantly hear. Like, you work so hard. I'm just like, because I'm not where I want to be yet. Like, but the truth of the matter is, like, there's always going to be something that needs to be done. There's always going to
Mm-hmm.
be something we probably forgot. Like the work, no matter if you are like the employer or the employee, it's always
Yeah.
gonna be there. Like there's always something that's gonna need to be done. So as long as I kind of stick to those 3 things, no matter
Mm-hmm.
where my brain tries to like ping me off to, and just like, oh, do this, like I catch
Right.
myself, and I'm like, crap, it happened again. And then like, I'll look at my husband, and I'm
Yeah.
like, when did I like,
Right.
when did I
Yeah.
like, get into this area? And then he'll just be like, oh yeah, you like checked out a couple minutes ago, and I'm just like, but sometimes I gotta let you get through it because when I tell you that you've done that, sometimes it makes you like sad. And so I
Yeah.
had to get past that as well. So now that I'm learning, it's
Mm-hmm.
starting to become more familiar so I can catch myself, and
Right.
it just becomes a little bit easier to get my tasks done on a day-to-day basis because I don't do like 20 things a day. Like I just set
Mm-hmm.
my intention. Like every morning I have a morning routine, and then I made like journal. That's a part of decompression. I try to get
Mm-hmm.
20 minutes of fresh air every day. That was my therapist recommendation. And then I just, try
Yeah.
to get what I can get done. I have kids, so
Right. Yeah.
it's only so much I can do.
Definitely. I'm definitely gonna check out the how to. You said how to ADHD.
I have an entire playlist of videos that help me.
Okay.
And what I ended
Mm-hmm.
up doing was like if I'm on a long car drive somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
I just put it on. Like I travel for a living. I'm a mobile mechanic. So I
Right.
just take, like if it's like 15 minutes or whatever, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I firmly believe that what's meant for me will never pass me. but I also
Mhm.
want to make the time to, you know, be able to receive these, like, you know, lessons and downloads and things of that nature.
Right.
So I can send you what I have. Like
Yeah.
I'm just
I
kind of
need it.
like like experimenting with myself, like a self study, to
Hmm.
kind of see, like, you know, like what things have I watched in a year from now. Hopefully, I'll be able to be like, wow, I remember when I used to cry because I was struggling with these things.
Hmm.
And now it's just like second nature.
Right. Yes, definitely. Journaling has helped me so much because you're right. Like you'll look back a year from now or two and be like, okay, well, that doesn't even bother me as much anymore. I figured out a way to deal with these different things, or look what I'm doing. Like that definitely makes me feel more accomplished too, and more focused.
Mm-hmm. And it's trial and error. Don't get me wrong. Like there are some days I'm a champion, and then there are other days where I'm just like, well, that was fun. I'm trying to get in the AM, but I've also learned that I try to balance mind, body, and spirit. And
Mm-hmm.
if one of those things aren't aligned, then that's when like the issues start to surface. So
Right.
by focusing now on like physical like side effects, I've learned how to kind of, you know, see where I'm struggling as well. Like it takes
Mm-hmm.
21 days to create a new habit. And as long as you're consistent, no matter what you do, you'll be successful. Like, you know, as long as you like stay
Mm-hmm.
consistent with like any program, honestly. But
Right.
once I learned that, it kind of broke it down into like regular-ish terms for me. And I was like, oh, but like, you know, sometimes I would like start a habit. Like I would just like journal in the morning. And then like one day I would forget and I'm like, oh no. So then like I would just be like, I'm just gonna journal before I go to bed. And then I would do that. And then by the time, you know, like I don't even know if I hit the 21 days, I just started like being on like autopilot. And now every morning before I even do anything, I journal, you know,
Right.
have a gratitude journal that helps me like fight the pessimism.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I have a business journal for my goals and aspirations.
Right.
And, you know, I just pick and choose. Like, it's not perfect, but I'm just trying because, you know, the good thing is when you try something new, like, you're
Mm-hmm.
gaining experience each and every time that you do it.
Right.
And once I kind of get like the rules down that I want to, then I can go and like tweak it, you know?
Yeah. That you're right. It's definitely better to just try something and have to go back and fix it than sit around and guess like, oh damn, what if I would have done that? Like
Mm-hmm.
that feeling sucks. So you should just get up and do it, definitely.
Yeah, literally, like Nike's slogan, just do it. Like,
Yes. So, with all the stuff you got going on, like, how do you actually allow yourself to relax? Like, how do you make sure you don't punish yourself or make yourself feel guilty for doing stuff that doesn't really have anything to do with being a mom or an entrepreneur, like just stuff you like?
you wanna know my secret?
Yeah.
Marijuana. Have me a little nice tote before I go to bed. And I think, I pray. I do. I pray for peace. I pray for gratitude. Everything is intention, no matter who or what you believe in.
Yeah.
Prayer is prayer. And some people call it manifestation. It doesn't matter to me like what you identify it as. You need something bigger than yourself to give that stuff that you can't process to.
For
Like
sure.
it's just too much. Like we're connected to the universe, like on a grand scheme of things. There is no way that like we, can hold all of this day to day stuff. I used to think that, and then I would wonder like why my hair was falling out, or like why like parts of my body was shutting down. I had to
Right.
get. I'm no stranger to the psychiatric ward. Like it's just.
Hmm.
It's like when you don't take care of those things, like you need help, like you need therapy, like you need a community, because if you don't, like they'll crash and burn, unfortunately.
For
And
sure.
today's society, like they praise you for like being this like hard type of worker situation, and I
Hmm.
I don't resonate with hard work anymore. I reject that narrative. Like
I feel you.
like I believe my ancestors have worked really hard, and I believe I deserve a life of ease, and I'm working to like get to that point. Like I just refuse to keep like recycling this horrible cycle of hurt and pain and hard
Yeah.
work. And I don't want, it's not a badge of honor to me. It only erodes my mental stability, and I believe we're so much more than like work.
Yeah.
I'm
Just
giving.
going and going and going. I definitely agree. Like I feel that. I agree that you can work hard, but it can be easy. Like I feel like if you're just doing things that you enjoy, like
Yeah.
you're just living it up. So
Yeah.
and you're getting paid. That's awesome. Like that's wonderful.
Yeah.
So
Like,
yeah.
and I only came to that conclusion after like I had to stop breastfeeding. Like, I was diagnosed with postpartum depression again.
Hmm.
And it like rocked my world because, me and my husband, like, we prayed that it would be different this time, but I've come to just understand that, like, certain people are just wired certain ways, and it doesn't make me like, a bad mom or something. It's just like,
Right.
like, I believe that I'm divinely created. So if that's the
Amen.
case, then it's just like, well, how do I go about, like being an empath, or how do I go about, like all these, like, some of the channels I watch, they call them superpowers. Like, how do I like manage these superpowers that I have?
Mhm. Yeah. Right. You're right. You have to find out what works best for you because all of us are just, we're all wired different. So it's not going
Yeah,
to be,
absolutely.
cookie cutter
Nope.
anything. We can't do, we may be able to get, tips and pointers from each other or influence and
Mm-hmm.
whatnot. But trust me, I've tried as well, and I'm no stranger to the psych ward either. That will happen. You
Yeah,
will break. Like you have to make sure that you just taking time for yourself and actually slowing down and thinking about what's actually going on at
right.
that time. Because we get lost for sure. For sure, for sure. So, does being a mother and an entrepreneur bring its own set of mental health challenges? Like, we pretty talked about
Absolutely.
this, but
Absolutely. I'm like laughing, but I'm like, it's like this diabolical, like, me. But it's like, um, it can be difficult juggling the two because in a sense, like when I was reading your post, it's like, yeah, like this is like my first baby, like I have created this business, and like it's changed my life for the better. And
right.
sometimes, like I had posted on my page when I got diagnosed, I was just like,
Mhm.
it's hard to kind of figure out, like which one I'm giving more attention to. Like, of course, you're like, you should give more attention to your kids. But
Right.
it's like, okay, but if I do that, who's going to pay the bills? Like, like
Yeah.
until
Yeah.
I, master like passive, residual income, like I still
Mhm.
have to figure this out too. And I give blood, sweat, and tears to both, like I don't believe
Mhm.
that, like, if you want to be a stay-at-home mom, or if you want to be a business mommy, like all I tell people is like make your life make sense to you. Like who makes the rules? Like like who's like you have to be this one person who does this one thing, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
why? Like like I'm getting into teaching now. Like I've been a mechanic for 13 years, and now like I'm online, so that gets challenging for me because people are like, oh, well, I can't wait for more of your classes and this, that, and that, or, like, more of your mechanical stuff. And I'm just like, I don't know if I'm done with that, but I want to
Mhm.
make that decision myself. Like, I don't want to be this like caricature of
Right.
like, like, oh, I gotta make like mechanical content, or like nobody's gonna watch me. Like I think that's like really messed up. Like I'm a painter, I do pole fitness, I
Right.
do beach yoga, I do so many different things that like I build, like we're building our this Airbnb
Nice.
for next year. So I've been working on projects around the house, so it's just like, like it's okay. Like if everyone's like, it's never too late to start over again. I'm like,
Mhm.
why can't I just like, you know, do the jack of all trades thing? Because nobody knows like the whole slogan. And that's what's like crazy. Like it's like, you
Yeah.
know, jack of all trades, the master of none. But the rest of it is but a master what is it? A master of some is better than a master of one.
Yes.
Like paraphrasing. And I'm just like, see, nobody will tell you that. They're just like, focus on one thing, one
Right.
thing only. And I'm like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
yes, but, you know, like,
Mm-hmm.
if you get your business stuff together, then you could do whatever you want. Like, Rihanna's a billionaire. She's literally just been, like, doing her thing. You feel me? Like, if you listen to any successful person, they just tell you, like, be yourself, you know?
Right.
Just be yourself.
That's it. Definitely. That's so funny that you mentioned that quote because me and Rob were just talking about that yesterday.
Yeah.
How they don't mention the entire quote
Mm-hmm.
because they don't want you to know, like, hey, you could go here and do a bunch of things and excel at a bunch of things, but don't definitely don't let anybody box you in, especially yourself. Like,
Yeah, that
don't
could be, I struggled with that for a very
let
long time.
Same
Like,
here.
I did.
Same.
I was like, oh, who am I if I'm not working on cars? And I'm like, you're a whole lot more. You know,
Definitely.
like I do a lot of
Definitely.
different things. And it doesn't like mean that I don't care about that stuff anymore. It just means that I've gotten what I needed from it. And, you
Mhm.
know, I'm ready for what's next.
Definitely. Definitely. Gotta stay motivated. It's hard sometimes, but it really helps to just keep pushing.
Mm-hmm.
But just we were also talking about how a lot of people, they'll just think that, okay, well, I'm supposed to make $1 million tomorrow. No, like these things are not gonna happen overnight. Like you can definitely be a millionaire tomorrow or whatever, but you got to be able to have a plan with that money too. Because if I guarantee you, if you had $1 million tomorrow, you wouldn't know what to do with it. You wouldn't know what to do with it.
Mm-hmm. You would
So,
end up like blowing it because, you know,
right,
I really
yeah,
think education is the answer. I don't think like money is the answer because when you give somebody who hasn't had money before money,
mm-hmm.
like to them, you know, and I've been, you know, like this. I was like, well, I don't know when I'll ever have this lump sum of money again, so I'm just gonna do what I want to do because I
Yeah,
deserve, you know, I deserve this, and I sure
definitely.
did, and like, you know, so what? But you know, after you know, I practice spirituality. I'm just like, you know, I do live a life of abundance, and that doesn't always like equate to, you know, like monetary things. Like I meet a lot of interesting people. Just this year alone, I've met my first billionaire and about 4 millionaires. You know,
Yeah,
so like abundance can mean like different things to different people.
definitely.
But you know,
Mm.
education, you know, is you got to get on the Google, man, and like actually find like real articles because I've learned like by setting my intention, if I
Mhm.
feed into my anxiety, I'm going to go look for like anxious posts like,
Mhm.
is
Mhm.
this, you know, real? Should I do this? Is that, you know, normal? Instead,
Mhm.
you know, like I could reword it in a positive manner and completely
Mhm.
change the narrative and get an answer that will actually be beneficial because as we all know, you can literally find an article to support anything. You know, like somebody's written something, you know, like if you're like, is the sky green? And then somebody's like, absolutely. You
Right.
know? So,
Yeah.
so it's clear as day, you know, it just depends. So I had to learn like what like who like which, you know, my dad always says like which wolf are you gonna feed, you know, like the good one or
Mhm.
the bad one. And
Yeah.
so I, you know, every day I just do my best to like, you know, I talk to myself, sure do.
Same.
Like my therapist, she's the one who started me like, you know, doing that. She's like, you know, people who talk to themselves are actually smarter because your brain is literally processing what you're saying out loud. So you say
Mhm.
it not only to the universe or to your God or whoever, you know, and then it goes right back into your eardrums. So then your brain has to process that sound. And so if you're like,
Mhm.
you know, that like those affirmations like I am beautiful, I am
Mhm.
smart, I am business savvy, like
Mhm.
eventually it'll click. Just like any new thing that you try, at some
Right.
point you're gonna have that transition where you're like, I am a baddie. You know, I
Right.
walk different. I sit up a little taller. I, you know, get my heart
Right.
chakra to the sun, you know, stuff like that.
Definitely. Yeah, it's all about what you give your energy to. Like what you focus on is definitely going to grow. If
Mm-hmm.
that's good or bad, that's up to you. So yeah, it's definitely important to just keep seeing where you're at mentally. Like you gotta evaluate that stuff because it's really easy to just go on autopilot for sure.
Absolutely.
For
Absolutely. Like that was the perfect word to use. Oh my goodness. Like it's mental health. Like the way I explain it is like, you know, my number one pet peeve is like rudeness, right? Because I don't feel
sure.
like I present myself to the world in a way that, you know, would be like angry. So
Mhm.
when I think of mental health, like, you know, the first time I got diagnosed with postpartum depression, I was on
Mhm.
autopilot for 3 years and I had no clue. Like, no
Mhm.
clue. And like now I'm vicariously living through photos that I never even knew I took. So
Yeah.
that was really hard for me to like even be like, oh my gosh, because like, you know, when did I, you know, when like, and when did I start slipping? Like, you know, and
Yeah.
I got diagnosed the second time, it like I was just like kind of laying on the bed and I started like sulking and, you know, getting into the sunken place. And then I like popped up and I was like, wait a minute, when did I get like, oh, like I've been working so
Yeah.
hard, like I be feeling so disrespected by my own brain, and that's what kind of gets me because I'm just like, you know what, if I can like fight upstairs, like I don't even care what nobody else has to say. Like I used to be scared to go outside, like I was agoraphobic, like really really badly.
Mhm.
And now like, you know, through therapy and, you know, like I had to take some medications at a certain point,
Mhm.
you know, she was just like, you need to go outside. Because
Mhm.
of like the pandemic, I worked case by case. Like I didn't have to go out in crowds, I didn't know people were outside. So when I
Right.
finally decided to, you know, reacclimate myself and go on walks and stuff like that, it
Mhm.
like literally sent me into a spiral of like panic. I was like, oh my gosh, there's so many people, they're so aggressive, because I've been slow living for 2 years. You know, I go see my
Yeah.
client, we chill, I work on their car, you know, me and my husband, you know, we're doing our thing. And then all of a sudden it's just like boom, like the world has been booming without me while I've just been in like a bubble. I
Right.
had no idea.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like you gotta be, you know, you have to be present. Like being present can be really, it can be challenging. And I watch the way I talk as well, because it's really easy
Mhm.
to be a pessimist. Like by nature, sometimes that's how I can be wired. But now I just like, it's not enough for me to be like, okay, well, I got depression, so this is it. That's like somebody who's like, you know, I'm a Gemini, so I'm just gonna be crazy.
Yeah.
I'm like, first of all,
Mhm.
I'm not crazy. I'm passionate.
Right.
Secondly, like,
Yes.
like people are multifaceted. Like each emotion is a different thing. Like the more people realize that, like you, it's not like you have different personalities, but you
Mhm.
definitely have different types of moods and triggers, right?
Yeah.
So if you're triggered, I had to learn that my triggers are my responsibility. Like if somebody's triggering me, like I can just go. Like, you know, I don't have to be like stuck in a place and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, you know, sometimes like I can drive. Like whenever I go out or something like that, if I do, you
Yeah.
know, I drive because when my, you know, I used to not have a social meter, but now like, you know, the older I get, I'll be 28 this year. Like when I'm ready to go,
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, y'all, spring
Right.
I'm out.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh,
And then I just bounce, like, you know.
you're right.
If I don't, I'm setting myself up for failure because I know what that spiral looks like.
Right. Definitely. And it can definitely get ugly if you ignore it. For sure.
Mm-hmm.
I've been there time and time again, and it is tough sometimes. I was definitely on autopilot for a while, just living, and like you said, like some of the pictures you sent me, even I'm like, dang, like what? Like I need to be painting again, or I need to be doing whatever again. Like if you're
Mm-hmm.
not doing what you love, it's not right. And that, like right now, I'm writing a book about my 20s. So I'm just like, dang, like a lot of those times I was just so caught up in being angry or depressed, using that as an excuse. Like, well, I'm depressed. I got ADHD. You
Mm-hmm.
know, yeah, but what are you gonna do about it? Like,
Yeah.
so definitely,
But every
definitely.
day is different, and I just try my best to be a little bit better than I was the day before. And sometimes I'm not triumphant, but to have a support system, I believe is
Mhm.
very important, because without support, like, I would not be here. I talk about my mental health so candidly because I don't feel like when people talk about like suicide, like like they say it like it's a curse word, you know? And I'm
Mhm.
like, thank you for sharing that with me. Like, how can I help you? Because like if people are like, oh, I wish so and so would have called me and this and the third, and I'm like, it's not about you. Like, if they felt like they had help,
Yeah.
like we're just, everyone's wired differently. Like, I confuse my professionals, you know, but I tell people like, don't diagnose yourself off of me. Like, I find a lot of the times that because I'm so open about my experience, people are like, yeah, I'm like that too. I'm like that too. So this is what and I'm like, no, go see a doctor. I don't know.
Right.
Like, I'm not a
Definitely.
doctor. Like, you need to go get yourself checked out. So
Yeah.
it just, you know, it just gets tricky. And like people are like, oh, well, I wish like she would have said something. Like, but people don't know this, but like back in January, my doctors were so afraid for me that they told me to readmit myself back into the psych ward because my PPD had just gotten so bad. Like, I was just like, you know, I'm gonna give it to God. Like, I don't know. And
Yeah.
you know, going back to the rudeness aspect, I got to a
Mhm.
point where I was just like, you know what? I heard someone say, like, I want to be like you at some point in your life, you have to become like the hero in your own story. Like, no one's coming to save you. And I'm just like, if somebody would just listen to me, if somebody could just like hear me, do like, you know, the things would change. And then I just kind of changed my narrative to, you know, like, I'm just gonna do the best that I can do, and I'm just going to constantly like reprogram my brain that every
Mhm.
time it tries to sabotage me, I'm just
Mhm.
gonna be like, no, you know, because you could just
Right.
not go down the rabbit hole. Like, a lot of the times we have to explain ourselves. Like, that's the thing with
Yeah.
ADHD. Like, we want people to understand desperately. Like, oh my god, it's and now I'm just like, I don't have to do that. Like, if somebody and like, and sometimes it triggers people because they'll like say something to me, and I just be like, no, I'm good. And then they're just like waiting for like the you're good
Right.
because, and I'm just like, that's it,
Yeah. No.
that's the punchline, period. Like, it's I don't have to
Yeah.
explain. And it throws people off. Like, people feel like they're entitled to your space and to your mental space. Like, people will just like unload on me. People just like unpack. Like, anybody who's in my circle, I always like, we always respect each other's space, and we're like, hey, do you have space for me to like dump? Because, you know, a lot of people in my
Mhm.
circle, like, we have it's only three of us, but we like, you know, that we just ask each other, and like sometimes we miss each other for a very long time, but you know, they
Mhm.
know if I'm like, you know, I don't hold water well, so if I'm going through it, I'm just like, oh my god, and I'm just like, look, I'm so sorry, but like, are you in a space for me to dump right now? Like, I'm
Yeah.
just like,
That's important.
yes. And so like, I'm like, y'all want me to be crazy? I'll be crazy.
That's
Just
really
like
good
get
that
a
you
support
said
system.
it.
And I tell everyone, you know, like, just be mindful. Like, I don't mind, you know, like being there for people, but like I
Mhm.
also have made it a point to ask, do you want to vent? Or are you searching for advice? Because that will
Right.
dictate how the conversation goes. You know,
Mhm.
because, you know, we're fixers by nature. That's what, you know, that's how I was for a very long time. I
Mhm.
was just like, oh, they're having these problems like me, so they must be looking for an
Right.
answer. And not everyone's
Yeah.
looking for an answer, you know?
Yep.
But I have
Mhm.
to have like, you know, the mental maturity to be like, hey, I don't think I'm in a space for this right now, because I'm learning how to, you know, not like, you know, learning about being an empath. I was just like, you
Mhm.
know, I absorb all this energy, so people need to respect that about me. And I learned that like nobody gives a shit that you're an empath. Like being an empath, I didn't know was like
Yeah.
actually like something that not everybody had. Like, I did not know that like people did not have empathy. Like, they just were not capable of understanding like, or absorbing somebody else's energy. I
Yeah.
didn't know that was a thing.
Right.
So
Yeah.
like now I'm learning how to, you know, like, I just like talk different, and it throws people off sometimes, like, because I'll just be like, you know, they'll say something to me, and now I've learned how to just be like, I reject that. And they're like, what? And I'm like, that doesn't belong to me. That like energy cannot be killed. It can only be transferred. You know, somebody, you tell
Mhm.
somebody your dreams, or you share something personal with somebody and they shoot you down. I'm like, that's because somebody else like shot them down in a moment of vulnerability. And I've learned that I'm cool as shit. and I like myself. And I was like, for a long time, I didn't know that. Like, and now that I figured that out, you know, by like the universe like isolating me into like this, like, oh my gosh, like, you know, at a certain point, I just prayed very hard, and I was just like, oh my God, like, you know, asking my ancestors and things. I was just like, if these people are not meant for my life, please remove them. And I will not ask any questions anymore, because I'm trying to force relationships with people because I'm so lonely, and I just wanted to, like, you know, give, like, you know, this part of me to somebody else when I should have just been giving it to myself. You know? And I was just like, it's really weird that I wear all these hats and I don't even wear my own. You know, I wear the mom hat, the CEO hat, I wear the, you know, the wife hat, the homemaker hat, like all these hats that I don't wear the Ashlee hat. And it's like, what? Like, you know, like, I'm like, so what are you doing for, what's the Ashlee hat, you know? And that's like, you know, part of being, like, digging into being your inner child. Like, I saw this TikTok, and this man was like, he was like, I'm so sweaty, and you know, I got lights going on and stuff. He's like, because I had a crunk battle by myself. And he was like, this is why y'all so mad, because somebody told y'all to grow up and you abandoned your inner child, and now you want everybody else to be angry and miserable like you. And I was like, onto something, sir. I think you are onto something. Like, who, like again, who makes the rules? Like, who is like, you can't do this? Like, it's like, why not? Why? It's not hurting anybody. I pray that, you know, whatever I do, like, you know, I pray that it's in alignment with my wellness, and that what that is that it doesn't, you know, affect or harm anyone in the process. Like, period, you know?
Yeah. You gotta do what you love for you. That brings me to a show I was watching called I Love That For You. I think it has Jennifer Lewis. I love her. Like, she's so awesome. But in the show, like, the girl's trying to work in advertisement, which is what I'm trying to get into right now as well. So he was talking about selling bath mats or some craziness like that. But she just asked her, like, you know, what are you selling me? And she started telling her, like, you know, where she's from and all that other stuff. And she was like, you got to tell me who you are before I can believe anything that you want to sell to me. Like, I don't know anything about you, so I don't trust you. So I'm not going to buy it. So it's definitely important for us to know ourselves before we try to just do anything, really, because it's not gonna work. You always gonna have to go back to that. Like, so it's just been more now for me, like, okay, well, I'm going back to the first thing, which is me, yourself, which is great. So that's good. That's good.
Me and my husband, like, we were you know, we were having a crazy cycle. You know, we celebrated 8 years together. And you know, stuff happens, and you know, like, people are like, oh, happily ever after, and I'm like, like, that's not how. But but I part of the reason why we were having like such a, you know, hard like disconnect was because, you know, I started going through a transformation through this process. Like, after my doctors told me to like readmit myself, I took that very seriously. Like, I was like, oh my gosh, I have let my mental stability like go off the rails again, and like nobody cares, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like my life is falling apart, and everyone's just like watching me on my social media platform, like self-destruct, like I'm that crazy person. And everyone's like, oh, they're dumping their life online, and I'm just like, somebody see me,
somebody help.
you're like, send help, send help. And like, you know, me and my husband, like, we ended up doing like therapy, and I was just kind of like, you know, how can, you know, you expect to know me 100% when I don't even know myself 100%? You know, like, I'm still learning that. Like, that's the whole reason this thing is happening right now, because I just gave up. I was like, I don't want to keep like being all these things for everybody else and be nothing for me. You know, like, even to a certain point, like the pink mechanic wasn't for me. It was for everybody else. And like, that took me 13 years, like, to even get to, you know, like, I was nervous. I'm a woman, I'm a Black woman in a white male dominated field. So, you know, like, I was like, oh my gosh. And then, you know, like, it's just, I've learned that it's just an ego fest. Like, everyone's just like, oh, well, you don't know. And I'm like, you know, at this rate, nobody knows everything. And I mean that quite literally, especially in like automotive. There are over like 8 billion like service manual pages now.
Mm-hmm.
If you think your mechanic knows that and you don't even read the book in your glove box, I'm gonna pray for you on that one. You know, like it's like
Right.
it's just so, and I had to learn how to do that. And now, you know, like thankfully, like I love all of my clients. Like they are so like they just understand that I'm a person. And I like
Yeah.
I just be honest. Like I literally like I'm like I don't need to lie. Like I'm just like straight up honest. I'm like, oh, my son is having a morning. I may be like 15 minutes off. Like I believe in communication. Like, you know, stuff
Yeah.
happens. Like literally stuff happens. And for like a small business, I believe accountability for a big business, accountability is huge. Like, but I
Mhm.
always make sure that my language is digestible. And I'm like,
Right.
hey, you know, like, you know, this is happening right now, da da da, you know, and I've just been really blessed that a lot of my clients are just like, all right. You know, like they
Yeah.
don't care. But I'm so used to like, you know, working for, you know, other people, or I was used to working for other people, that I was just
Mm-hmm.
like, oh my gosh, I have to explain everything and tell them that I'm gonna be late. I have to take my son to a doctor's appointment, da da da. Like you know, I'm learning my ADHD, so I forgot to set an alarm to keep me on track, and I missed the
Yeah.
alarm because my phone was on silent for some reason. You know, like it just
Mm-hmm.
like blows my mind that like I've been able to surround myself with a community of people who just care. They get it. You know, I don't have to say too much, and they know. They're like, you don't have to explain. Like, we know, like this is your thing. Like, you don't
Right.
have to say like too much about that. We get it. You know, we trust you. I,
Right.
I think that's
That's what
really
we think.
powerful.
Right. We trust you because you're good at what you do, and you're always you make sure you take care of it. Like you let us know whatever, and that's great. That's always awesome. So this has been an amazing conversation,
Yeah.
and definitely it's almost over, which sucks. So we're gonna have to run this back for sure. We're gonna have to run this
Yeah.
back.
Well, you got
So
my number though. You can hit me up
yeah,
anytime. You know, I get you can.
of course, yes, I definitely will take you up on that for sure. So I'm gonna ask you two more questions real quick. So on June 26, 2020, you published a picture of cupcakes with the caption, "This is my last day as a manager of someone else's dream. Now I go chase my own." Like, and I see, like I said, I see you've been thriving with a lot of different stuff since then. Like,
Girl, I
can
was
you recall
keep my head
what
above
your
water.
can you
Don't let the hype fool you, boo.
what okay, so like can you recall what you were thinking at that time? Because I'm currently at that junction. Like, so what
I
just
had
made you
found
say
like I had to bounce. Like you remember when I told you like, you know, work until your side hustle becomes your main hustle. Like
yeah.
after my son's daycare provider like just constantly kept shutting down, like me and my husband were
Hmm.
going through like a really rough time with our jobs because like his job expected me to quit mine because I was the mother. And I'm just like, I worked my entire career to become a manager. Like and y'all just like, well, you're the mom, you stay home with the baby. And I'm just like, F that. So
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
and then it was just like the lack of humility. I'm just like, someone died. And this was like when COVID first was like a thing. Like nobody knew what it was or, you know, like how it affected people. They were just like, you turn on the news, it's like death everywhere. Death,
Yeah.
you die. It's like, oh my gosh, like what's happening? What is this? And so like, you know, then they you know, because when you work for rich people, they like to keep their money. So they cut half of our staff and they refused
Mm.
to hire anybody else because it was new and they were just like, well, we don't know what's going to happen, but we want to make sure we're still rich at the end of this. Like they literally was just like
Cool.
flashing folks and like it's like, dude, like these are real people.
Right.
Like and you
They
hear
were
it all
there.
the time, like they make jokes about it on movies and stuff like that, but no, like
Yeah.
I could not wrap my head around the fact that I had worked my entire like career to become a
Yeah.
manager and I couldn't afford it. I couldn't afford to be a manager. Like childcare was
Hmm.
like, oh my gosh, childcare is still unregulated. Like it's just as bad as like, you know, any other labor field. It's like, who gauges the price on this stuff? It's like, but if I don't got a babysitter, I can't go to work. You know, I'm not, and I'm
Right.
definitely not bringing my. First of all, work is stressful enough. You want me to bring my kids?
Yeah.
Don't do it. So I was just like, it was a lot of different things. But, after like my husband, you know, his job let him go
Mm-hmm.
because of differences. He just started working for our business. I had
Mm-hmm.
registered the business license and things of that nature.
Okay.
And he was doing like really well. Like I believe my husband's very talented at what he does. Like he not only is he passionate, he's just like gifted at it. And
Yeah.
it's not through just like, just because he's good, like he's actually very invested in his time and like he's
Yeah.
very thorough. My husband is very
Mhm.
thorough, so that goes a lot into it. He's can be a perfectionist, but um I just like with the BLM and all that stuff happening, like I
Mhm.
was working for that company and I just remember like at that time one of the associates was like calling like, corporate or one of the big wigs because the church behind us was having like a peaceful protest and they were ready to like batten down the hatches because they were so used to watching the news about like how aggressive this thing was. And I'm like, here I am, a Black woman working for a company that's giving like protocol for a BLM, like, a peaceful
Mhm.
protest at a church. And I just was kind of like, I think this is it for me, like the lack of
Mhm.
childcare. I'm traveling 30 minutes to and from, so that's an hour commute every day. I miss my child. Like, I wake up in the morning, I drop him off, and then Alante would pick him up. And by the time I got home, he was asleep. So I would just like
Mhm.
miss my child, period. And
Right.
then like I'm just like I'm not colorblind. Like that whole narrative to me just doesn't
Yeah.
make sense. Like in a perfect world, why not? Sure, run with it. But we all know I have black, brown. I got big hair. Like
Yeah.
like ain't no way you can't
Right.
see that. Like there's no way that you can walk out the door. Like my husband's a dark skinned Black man. He's a very melanated man, and I love every inch of him. But he's
Mhm.
constantly profiled because of his color. So I'm like, you
Right.
can't like sit here and like it just felt very
Yeah.
personal to me. Like I felt like I was like being a part of a narrative that didn't resonate with my morals. And
Mhm.
he was doing really well and my clientele was picking up a lot. I decided to go online because we've been word of mouth the entire time. And like a lot of my clients were like, why aren't you online? And now my clients are like, why aren't you on YouTube? And I'm like, look, I'm trying. Y'all keep
Right.
and I'm trying. All I can do what I can do, but I promise, like everything in time. Like you got anything,
Yeah.
everything in time. You can't rush it. It's a microwave society, but you can't rush it.
Yes.
Let me get there. Yeah, let me get there.
Definitely. You gotta allow yourself. I just said that to myself this morning. Like it will happen, but it doesn't have to happen all at once. That's
Right,
okay. Like you
right.
don't have to make all of these things happen at one time, and that's okay
No.
for sure.
Okay, so just finish the task. Like, so
Yeah.
I have like little tidbits. Like, this is my third bedroom, but I was
Mhm.
encouraged when I did have when I was managing PPD to get a
Mhm.
safe space of my own. So now, like when we move, I have my own space, so I can
Ooh.
like decompress.
Yeah.
And I have stuff like all over my room, like little tidbits to remind me because like when I start getting
Mhm.
all like tight, I have to remember
Right.
to breathe. Like if you can control your breath, you can control anything. Like
Yeah.
you can literally like you can. I've seen like monks go through this ceremony where they get draped in like layers and layers of like these wet cloths in the
Mhm.
middle of like negative degree weather. And after a certain point, you just start to see like steam lift off of like those wet, like, into like a regular person. Like, what the hell is going? What the hell
Yeah.
is this a magic trick? They got heat blanket on. And it's like, no, like he or she has
Yeah.
completely just like tapped into their
Mhm.
own like center and learned how to breathe and be calm. That's why they tell you like when you're in an emergency, don't panic. You're gonna make it worse. Your adrenaline's gonna rush, and you're just gonna make everything a living hell. Like just don't do it. And it works. I can't
Yeah.
express how relieved I am to have found out that breathing works. It's like you don't even notice that like your jaw is tight, your shoulders up, you're like you're tight, like breathing. You're like, wait a minute. It's like, you know, like on my page, I try to like put little tidbits in there. I'm just like, this is your reminder to like, you know, breathe in through your nose for 7 seconds, exhale out of your mouth for like, you know, 4 to 5. Because if you don't, like, you're like, dang, like you reset yourself. Like, you know, when I have panic attacks, my psychiatrist is like, if you're struggling to breathe, just stop breathing. And I was like, what? She was like, if you do that, you have a reflex. Like, you can't hold your breath and kill yourself. Like, it's impossible. You have a reflex inside of you that will automatically, like, you know, you know, fill your lungs back up. Like, it's a reset. And so I've had to do that a couple of times as like a coping mechanism. I'm just like hyperventilating. And then like, you know, everyone's like, slow down. And I'm just like, okay. You know? So then I just, you know, like I breathe out as much as I can. Like, you know, I practice like yoga sometimes, or, you know, I just do breathing meditations on YouTube. And I just, you know, like try to exhale from like my chamber of my chest all the way down to my diaphragm. And I just like let it all out, and I just like wait, and I'm just like, just relax, just calm down. And then eventually, you know, it's like that water scene. We're just like, and like that kind of resets, and then my brain is like, okay, all right. So like physically, my body has registered that, you know. So I think that's like, you know, you got to get some coping skills that work for you, because if you just Google like coping skills for anxiety or depression, girl, you will be in a spiral. I've learned, and I will send you this. The pages that I just watch those because the internet is full of so much stuff, and like there are things that are helpful, but really like you'll just end up like overwhelming yourself with too much information. And I just pray like whatever's meant for me will never pass me. I read what I read and not like let it go. Like I said it and forget it.
Yes, because it is a lot to get lost in, and like you said, it's easy to just diagnose yourself and be like, oh, I got this problem, I gotta follow this, I gotta do it like she did or he did it. And you'll just I've been there before. I just get down on myself and then not want to do anything. So, yeah, it's definitely hard to keep swimming, but I am so happy.
You can do it. You're already doing it. And that's the wonderful thing about it. Like, you have survived your worst day and you are still here to tell it. So you're doing amazing.
You too, man. So this was awesome, and like I said, I'm gonna have to have you back on the show so we can talk again. We've covered so much, and we've got so much more to talk about. So just real quick,
I was like, let me see what you got. Like, girl, that is so cute. I was watching you. I was like, dang, like she.
What would you call this?
She's a professional. She's a professional. This what I need.
Beautiful.
Just a little like, you know, brush situation, you know.
I love it.
I gotta take the stickers off once I clear coat it, but my soap gonna be fancy.
Yeah, it's good. Well, thank you again for being here, my love. I'm gonna talk to you soon. And everybody out there, if you're dealing with ADHD or anything like that, you need somebody to talk to, we can definitely point you in the right direction. So until next time, actually next week, we're going to take off for Mother's Day. So happy Mother's Day to you, love. I hope you get some time to just enjoy yourself and do what Ashlee does.
Girl, shoot, I may go disappear in the mountain.
Yes. I'm going to call this disappear for you. That's right. Disappear. Yes, disappear. That's what this is called. All the mothers go disappear next week.
Go bathe in somebody's lake naked somewhere.
Right. All right, y'all. Love you. Peace. Peace, love, and paint. See you later.
See ya.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.